Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the League Community Podcast, or whatever it is that we're calling it these days.
I think we're just the League Podcast.
Yeah, just the League Podcast. Yeah. Sometimes League Community, sometimes otherwise. Today we are going to be talking about Yorick. I have John O'Brien from the Rise Podcast here. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, well, I'm doing... Man, no one ever asks me how I'm doing. Now I feel great.
Oh.
We also have one of my favorite designers who hides from podcasts and live streams in the spotlight no longer. Soul Kim, also known as Soul Crushed. Soul, how you doing, man?
I'm pretty good. I'm just antisocial, that's all.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm totally fine. No, this is... I have always told people that if I ever ended up getting an item in the game, we would share it. And it would be the Scarred Soul Crusher. And it would be spelled S-O-L. It would be a big hammer. Because that is the bond that Soul Kim and I share, is a very powerful and destructive one. And then here, filling out our podcast lineup, we have Andy Belford, Riot, Zwill, working on NA player relations. Usually see him kicking around on the streams, on the podcast. He is here co-hosting with me once again. How are you doing, Andy?
Oh, it's awesome to be back behind the mic.
Ooh, yeah. And you guys just earlier today were doing the Yorick stream.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
We had our live our PBE stream. We started doing that for all of our new champs and champ ups, and it's been a really great experience.
Yeah. So people who are listening to this, you already missed it, but there will be VODs. Am I correct?
The VOD is in the client as we speak.
Yeah, and I mean,
or
honestly,
just go to the channel.
Yeah, and honestly, the time that you guys are listening to this anyways, the character's probably out. You're probably going to be dunking people, but let's get into it. Yorick, the Gravedigger, no longer, right? What's his new title? Is he the
Shepherd of Souls?
The Shepherd of Souls.
So he no longer digs graves?
He does, but that is just a part of his identity now.
Did they have a falling out or?
Yeah.
Well, you know,
He and Graves, they no longer lane together anymore.
It's so...
Yeah, I know. That's...
He's TF now.
Yeah, he's a TF now.
Man.
It's canon. It's canonized.
I'm a little slow there.
But no, I have to say, this is one that holds a lot of personal importance to me because I've been playing League of Legends since, I think, October 2009. I've been playing League of Legends for about as long as you can play League of Legends, and Yorick's introduction to the game was so weird because he came out and a lot of people, a lot of people felt that he was rushed because he was super, super broken. And then they nerfed him to being almost useless, and then after that, he kind of just stagnated for a long time, and he's kind of been the butt of a lot of jokes in the community, and just like Scion was when he was, large, greenish blue pizza feet Arnold Schwarzenegger guy, and he became one of the most metal champions in existence. When I heard Soul was heading up the Yorick rework, I was like, get ready for a banger. Like, this is gonna be top of the charts, awesome rework. How do you feel like it has gone so far?
It has definitely been an interesting experience, to say the least, basically. Yorick has, like you said, Patrick, like always been about, like, he has a lot of baggage attached to him. Like, if we did not like his gameplay overall. Like, when you were playing as the character, there was a lot of stuff about it. He had this, like, an identity as a minion kind of character that we need to figure out how we could actually translate into League, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been a long and, like, interesting experience.
Right. So we have Kled and Skarl. We've had Quinn and Valor. Last year we had Lamb and Wolf. And we have a lot of these characters that feel like dual champions or feel like they have extra, pets or things that you might want. And players are always like, when can I get pet controls? Something that feels a little better than like Annie and Tibbers. And we've always had some sort of limitations on the tech side, and no champion really revealed that other than Yorick, right? Tell me, what was it like trying to work some of his, that minion mancer feel, as people would call it, into this new kit with some of those limitations?
So the biggest thing that, like, when we started working on Yorick was trying to figure out how much control he would have over his minions. Was it going to be full control? Was it going to be, like, little control? Was it going to be no control? Like, what have you, right? So couple things that had developed by the time we were starting to create Yorick was that we had, like, basically a full control version, not completely a minion mancer, but to some degree, a lot of what that kind of model like exemplified was Azir. Azir had basically extensions of himself that he could like basically fully control with some limitation, like, and do whatever he wanted basically. And then they were also untargetable and all that kind of stuff. They were not actual minions, but the general idea was fairly similar, and the space was fairly similar, if you will. So the route that we decided to take was that there were a couple of reasons that we decided with the uncontrollable, like more or less uncontrollable with like some elements of control model. One being we wanted a lot of minions, and generally we didn't want the amount of like a micro that would like come with the ability to like control like 4 or 5 whatever amount of minions.
So yeah, we were thinking not like StarCraft here, where you're like,
no,
I'll send these 2 minions there and these 2 minions
basically.
there. Yeah,
exactly. And then we definitely wanted an army, if you will, not like 1 or 2, because like that's the entire point of like undeath and like ghoul armies and all that kind of stuff, where like you have like more than like a few significant guys. It's like a lot of insignificant guys is generally the fantasy that you generally go for. So from there was also the fact that like we wanted Yorick to stay like a beefy, burly kind of character, because Yorick on live is very burly and very, very beefy. He has like very.
He walks with a limp, but he's cut.
Yeah, he has like he has a bad posture and all that kind of stuff, but he's like definitely like
his parents are very, very upset with his League of Legends experience. Honey, sit up when you walk. And so John, these, as Soul's talking about, all them being an army versus not, or mindless versus controllable. Well, they're not even really ghouls anymore, are they? We're calling them Mistwalkers.
That is correct.
Tell me about his relationship to these beings.
Well, we wanted a better word for ghouls. I think they're still essentially that.
Yeah, they're still.
But we wanted something a little more, maybe ownable. Than ghouls, than the common noun ghouls. But yeah, he's a messed up guy who has not had much contact with humans in a long time. And all he has to talk to are these undying gobs of flesh that live on in the Shadow Isles with him. And
what is it with you working on these crazy hermit champions, John?
Yeah.
You're like Yorick, Rise. They stay away from people. They talk to objects.
They're timeless. And they don't have friends.
I'm seeing like a fantasy, maybe somebody specific's fantasy playing out here.
Yeah.
I think it's real life for me.
John, do you wish we were all undying gobs of flesh right now?
I just want friends. That's what I'm trying to express. All
right. So you're saying that he kind of really only talks to these guys. Fill me in on who this guy really is.
This guy he's someone ever since he was a young boy. He was sort of Haley Joel Osment, and he saw dead folks. And one day, this is all going to be in his bio.
Yeah.
But he was discovered by a sect of religious monks in the Blessed Isles, and they thought he could be an asset to their order. And so he sort of thought he'd never been accepted by kids or anyone.
So this was a big deal for Yorick. Yeah. He's like, whoa, people think I'm actually cool.
Yeah. But then the monks didn't accept him either, because he turned out to basically be this thing that was proving or disproving their faith. And it was, this is not something that's supposed to be proven or disproven to them. And they felt threatened by it. So he never quite fit in with the monks either. And then once the ruination happened, that's sort of where he sort of found his purpose. It's like, yes, these now I can sort of, he sort of found that he had this ability after the ruination to summon things from the ground. And so those were really the first beings that he had some sort of connection to, I think he felt, and that could not, refuse to accept him.
So it wasn't necessarily like a place of belonging per se. It was just really more finding, like you said, like his purpose in life. Though.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Still a pretty morbid guy then, Yorick, is what I'm getting from this. Still not the happiest dude.
No, that is fair to say. And when we were starting on this, I feel pretty good with how this came out. mainly because it's been almost a year.
Yeah, it has been a long time
figuring things out on him.
It's been fun because players, we always do this with every project and with every release, right? People are like, "When's the Yorick rework?" And we're just like, sitting on it, and like even we were doing the live stream with Greg Street last week, and everyone's like, "When's Yorick coming out?" And we're just like looking at our watches, being like, "You'll see the GIF on Friday," like the model's gonna start coming through, and I know this was so hotly anticipated that even internally everyone was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that dumpy old character." Shout outs to the people of you that do play Yorick, out in the crowd, but that guy was being updated.
It was actually hard for me anyway to find somebody who loved playing old Yorick, because I wanted to find out what they liked about him. And this guy comes up to me and he says, "You guys are doing the Yorick rework." And he was a rioter.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "He's my main." And I was like, "Why?" And he said, and I quote, "Why? Because he's an asshole." And so that's, I guess, the reason this particular guy anyway liked maining Yorick.
Yeah,
that's because I think it's just that persistent,
That's been an interesting thing that we've been getting from just already, like on day one of the announcement of his rework and like the details of his kit and stuff like that. We've already been getting some fairly polarizing responses from people who were Yorick mains. I mean, like to call out one of the players in the live stream who has been asking about the Yorick rework, Terra Rising. He was really excited about it, and then he came in the live stream today and he was not excited about it. How challenging was it to kind of keep this patchwork, or this mishmash of what a character he was before? Like, he didn't really have a lot of focus before, right?
He's a weird character because he's sort of like half a Shakespeare reference.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I don't, okay.
I knew him well.
But, right, exactly.
Well, it's actually interesting that you bring that up, just to say, because when I have a lot of ties to Karma, as some people who listen to this may know. I was tasked with reworking Karma, and Karma, everyone was like, "But it's in her name, Karma," right? And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I don't know what to tell you. We shouldn't have made a character with a yin yang dress that was named Karma," right? Like, that's, it's like if we had released Garen and his name was Justice, right? And it's like, well, I don't know how we can really flesh him out anymore after that,
right?
Yeah. Right? And I feel like, Yorick was kind of one of those when I kid you not, when he came out and was revealed the first time, players in the community were like, "Oh, I'm excited for him. I'm a big Shakespeare fan." It was literally that, like, the brand recognition, so to speak, was there, and that was really one of the only things carrying him as a character.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, the fact that he's a gravedigger, but isn't Yorick the skull?
Yeah,
it is literally Horatio, last poor Yorick.
Yeah,
so
I knew
it was
him
kind of
well.
tough to make sense of that, in my opinion. But so we sort of set out. We were like, well, what are the important things about this guy as a character? And we actually seriously debated, like, do we want him to have a shovel? Like, should it be something else? And we ultimately landed on, yes, shovel, but make it something cooler, maybe like a monk spade or something that looks sort of like that.
Soul, how hard was it for you to, we're talking about it on kind of the story side and the personality side, but especially champions that need this level of rework, right? And sure. You, for people out there who aren't familiar with Soul's previous works, worked on Poppy, Gangplank, a lot of pretty big ticket reworks over the years. But even with Poppy, right, where we knew at the beginning, it was like, well, that alt is gone. Yeah. We got to make a whole new set of abilities. How hard was it for you to start prototyping kits that you think felt like Yorick and not just another fighter or not just a different character?
Actually, on Yorick's side, it was relatively on the easier side, if you will, compared to, like, I would say Poppy or like Gangplank. Mainly because Poppy, I'll just refer to Poppy.
Go for it, man.
Poppy basically, other than the fact that she was a hammer and was a Yordle. I mean, she was a Yordle that had a hammer. There was nothing about the character like that actually felt like, some kind of actual thematic. Like, okay, she's a fighter. Yeah. She's small. Like, there's not a lot that we could go from there. Opposed to Yorick, which was, like his actual realization in game was somewhat subpar potentially, but he had a very clear theme of like, oh, this guy's gonna be like kind of like a necromancer kind of dude. This guy is like, you know, kind of the frontline warrior to some degree, all that kind of stuff. And from there, the initial like, you know, basically bare bones paper kit, if you will, was actually formed relatively early in the process and didn't waver that much. Like,
so you're saying then, I guess to paraphrase, you felt like compared to other champions that we may have worked on, where I guess, you know, Gangplank is like, oh, he's a pirate, and it's like, okay, well, like, what else can we really do with that? You actually feel like Yorick's theming was super on point. We just didn't have a really good execution of it in game, and so maybe there was a lot of room to
basically
cover.
The challenge on Yorick was less about like, you know, what he could do, because those were generally like much easier to like imagine, if you will. The difficulty was, how can we actually make that kind of gameplay actually work in our game? How do we make like, you know, a minion summoner like, you know, not feel like, you know, you're just like doing like throwing away massive amounts of like, you know, minions at the enemy, which the enemy just has to deal with one way or the other.
Right. Well, because it's either like, oh, if I have a minion horde running at me, if my opponent can deal with them quickly, then I don't feel very strong, right? I'm like, oh, they just, Katarina throws one dagger and they all explode, right? Or if I'm overwhelming them, then the opponent's like, what the heck? Like, how am I supposed to fight this, right? And it feels like, characters like Malzahar recently from Champion Update kind of have this feeling where you're like, oh God, the Voidling swarm comes for me and I need to deal with it. But you went in a different direction, and I want to kind of hear a sound off from both of you on this, which is the Maiden, right? That ultimate being such a new and unique way to enforce split pushing in our game. How and why did you decide to make me tilt in every single game with this ultimate?
There's a couple of reasons. So
just walk me through the whole.
Sure.
Did you just see me one day and you were like, I don't like him anymore? It's
I never
time
liked you, by the way.
No, I needed that illusion. Okay. All right.
Right.
Back to the Maiden.
I have nothing against you.
Oh, thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Traitor. That was not what you told me last time.
No, guys, this is supposed to be about Yorick, and now I am the one who is sad.
Yeah.
For
So
the record,
Patrick,
I'm indifferent.
no, not Patrick.
Okay. Thank you, Andy. Yeah.
So the original inspiration for the Maiden came from the fact that we were crafting out like an experience for his ghoul summoning that was like pretty similar to what you see right now. It's like a cadence summoning, like, and that happens like every 20-30 seconds, and not always like you can see it building, like when he's generally gonna try to do his thing, and you can like wait it out, all that kind of stuff. The issue with that was that because of the entire premise of like you need to let the enemy team see it coming, and like it requires like bodies, all that kind of stuff. There were multiple cases where Yorick actually felt very lacking because I met someone in the jungle, I don't really have anything to actually summon kind of stuff, or I'm in a situation where I would want to actually, I never actually feel completely like an awesome summoner because I'm like always kind of like trying to get around these.
You're trying to dig these
restrictions.
graves. It's actually pretty similar if you'll allow to Alawi, right? Where you're like, when I'm near all my tentacles, I'm a super powerful character, right? But if you catch me out, I don't, sometimes I don't feel like my full champion, right? Because I don't have all of the kind of map elements that really make it work.
So yes, to some degree similar to Ilaoi, and I would say even more so for Yorick because the fantasy of the character, Ilaoi is not necessarily the tentacle master as the fantasy, but Yorick is like at its core the ghoul master as the fantasy, and I felt like there needed to be ways I could allow him to kind of like cheat the rules, if you will, but making it like still gated. So that was when the idea of, hey, let's have a big ghoul, like he was literally named the Big Ghoul. At the
Big
very start.
Ghoul.
Yeah, he was literally called Big Ghoul,
And that's my nickname in high school, actually.
Yep,
Big Ghoulie.
The idea was that while she was out, like Yorick could basically cheat the rules. So she just like summons ghouls around him without having him go through the like the grave like mini game, if you will.
Can I stack them? Can I get grave mini game and maiden ghouls?
You can leave graves and you can have like ghouls, but you can never have more than 4 of both.
Okay, all right. So it doesn't go too out of control.
No, it just like lifts one of the restrictions on like his summoning, and when he summons the maiden, obviously he like summons a bunch along with it. And then now that we had this like big ultimate thing thing sitting there, like, hey, this is like the focal point of like in his like unfair moment. What can he do with this kind of thing? And then that's where we went with the idea. Okay, she's already raising things on her own. It might be really cool if she could like walk on her own and like basically maintain a separate army from Yorick and basically have like two undead armies walking at the same time, which allows us to both, hey, he can only have 4 at an area, but total he has like 9, right? Because
yeah,
4 for 1.
Yeah, and I haven't yet played with it, but I have seen it in playtests, and there are definitely times where you get the zombie apocalypse feeling, right? Like
exactly.
Yorick's with his army on bot lane, the Maiden's with her army on top lane, and you see the them coming through the windows almost, right? You're like, oh, we have to run around in the base, we have to try to stop it. John, who is this character? This Maiden, because I was listening to his voiceover earlier today. Try to get a sense for the way the New York comes out. He's very morbid, he's very morose, he's and yet I started hearing this voice, and is that the character, the Maiden as well?
Yes. We call it a her and we call it the Maiden, but it's actually not a single thing. It's actually a big conglomeration of souls.
So wait, this is like a spirit homunculus?
Yep. And it comes from the mist.
It's complicated.
It is very complicated.
It comes from the mist, basically, that's forever stuck to Yorick. And this is one of its forms that it materializes into, is this Maiden of the Mist. And, the decision to actually make this a character came about pretty late, I remember. And there's one day where Saul's actually like a pretty stern critic sometimes. And there was one day where he was like,
I would say so. Yeah.
He was like, I don't think this, I don't remember how this got started, but it just like, this isn't feeling right. And we sort of felt like we needed to figure, this needed a little more. And and somehow we came to the idea, well, what if we give lines to this thing? And it's actually, not a duo like Lamb and Wolf, but it's we would just use the sparsely and have it speak and have Yorick respond to it, and we could see a little bit of their relationship.
It did not feel like a healthy relationship from what I did see.
It's not, and it's and we actually debated for a long time, like, well, what is this relationship? Is this thing a parasite? And we sort of came up with this idea that it's like a 60-40 split, symbiotic to parasitic, basically. Like it's they both benefit each other, but the mist is sort of playing Yorick.
So it's literally a love-hate relationship.
Yeah. And it's his best friend, but at the same time, it's the thing that wants to do him in. And it's sort of it's sort of his biggest power. It's his strength. And and I love that. And I'm very proud of that, actually. I'm glad we had that talk that day.
Do you listen to Johnny Cash at all?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. Listening to you talk about that right
I'm from
there.
Tennessee, so
I lived in Knoxville for many years.
I'm from Memphis.
Oh, okay, right on. Like, okay, so I know it's a
Quick
really.
Soul, we have to talk about how great friends we are and all the things we have in common.
Well, no, it's really interesting.
We're not from the same country.
Wait, you're not
we
Korean?
both. Well, I don't like playing Swain. Oh shit, this doesn't work anymore.
No, but it's really interesting to hear you talk about kind of like the tortured aspect of like this thing that's like, when you listen to Johnny Cash in interviews talk about like his drug addiction.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
He says it's this thing that's going to destroy him, but it's where his like
it's also the source of his
it's really interesting.
But yeah, well, I mean, and once we found that, I felt like, wow, this is some serious stuff to mine.
Yeah, I remember that that talk actually. Like, I think it was because I felt that the character, when he did not have the mist to like talk to, and like, it was like just the one guy like and talk about this stuff. He felt a little monotone because he was all like, we didn't want this character to be like, bloodthirsty or anything, and he was like stoic kind of thing. And when you have a stoic character talking to himself like, just on and on, it kind of gets like really like one dimension. Starts feeling really one dimensional. It doesn't really feel like it's an actual character. And the idea was that we would have like a foil for Yorick, basically, if you will, that he would talk to, and then she would try to like, like tempt him into doing like or weaken him, that kind of stuff, and Yorick would have like, instance where he could like show off the strength of his character by being able to like,
resist
this kind of like, thing that's been going on for presumably like hundreds of years or whatever, right?
Yeah, she or it, however may be correct. When the Mist speaks to him, it is a downer, man. It is. I think the line that I heard is like, look at all the evil you're doing, or something like that. And York's just like, look, I kind of have to do this. Like, can I text you later about it? Like, he seemed, and it was interesting because I was clicking around and there's times where, he in his own zone is, like, oh, isn't it cool to hang out with dead stuff, and like his very chill way, but then interacting with that spirit, like you say, you really get a sense of like how you think he can change, right? And how he thinks it's very important, the work that he's doing, and how he really does want to save people at the end of this, right? He believes there is,
in his own way.
Yeah, in his own way, I think is correct. Yeah. It's funny that you brought up the like how one-dimensional it might feel. This is not a criticism, but going back to Rise, who we talked about some months ago, I had put in a lot of Rise games after that, and his thing almost is the hermit talking to himself, right? Like you get a lot of the, he's so serious, and I was laughing at how serious he really was. It's like Rise really cannot take a break from being he's like, what's on my back? That's none of your business. It's like, I remember when I used to be a human or whatever, and you're like, damn, Rise, tone it down a little.
I think the differences between them are kind of interesting, and we've had this conversation too. Yep. I think Rise thinks things can be saved, and I think Yorick thinks things have to be destroyed to be saved, because I don't think he thinks he can correct the ruination really. But I think he thinks he can get those souls to the afterlife, but to do that he's got to sort of wipe everything out. He's got to start over, basically.
A little nihilistic, but
but yeah, and I think Yorick is so far is more removed from humanity than Rise even. I think Rise remembers things that he liked about being human. I don't know that Yorick does. Yeah. I think it's so distant to him.
Would you say Yorick is like the purest version of the anti-hero in our game then?
Ooh, maybe. Yeah, I mean, there was, when we were,
busting out the literature terms.
Yeah, we were having when we were discussing him in pod meetings, we would come to like Spawn a lot of the time. Like, who's a guy that is kind of vile in nature, but has good intentions, I guess, or is using that for a noble purpose.
Right.
And that's Yorick, I think. He's got this awful power. He wants to do good things. He has good intentions. Like, his end goal is not just to enslave people and make them do his bidding, like Thresh or somebody like that.
Right, or like a Mordekaiser, maybe. Yeah. And it's almost very defeatist the way that he is, right? That he's like, well,
it's like
I don't believe, either because the Mist has made him believe this, or he truly doesn't, believe that he can do good for the world, right? And so he's like, well, in light of that, the only thing I can do, right, is try to bring about some end, and then after that,
get us all out of this limbo we're stuck in.
Right.
I think I can do that. Yeah.
So he has good intentions, but his actions are objectively not good. Like, he's the one guy that's his actions are not good at all.
I think another comparison I might draw is like Vel'Koz is the funny version of this. Right, it's like Vel'Koz. He's doing some good for someone, right? He's doing science, he's doing experiments, but he's like at the cost of you and your family and your flesh and stuff like that, And he has a very silly tone to it. I think Yorick is a very serious one. Soul, I want to go deep on some game design stuff with you here. So I apologize for people, but we about to get heavy. I want to talk about the nature of split pushing,
right?
And I've even told you that I want you to do like a presentation on it, because I think to share a little bit. For years now, split pushing has been, I think we have been in a love-hate relationship with it as a mechanic, right? Because it's, everyone has memories of when the Yi or Twitch or Tryndamere just destroys all your towers, and you're like, I want to go fight that guy, but I can't leave my team because then we'll lose, right? And you're kind of in this no-win scenario, right? And it feels rough. But then when you're able to pull it off on the other end, right, it feels exciting. And it's always kind of been a release valve because it's like, are we really going to give Tryndamere the tools to be a really good team fighter?
No,
right? And or Nidalee, right? For a long time, the question mark of Nidalee is like, well, what does she really do? And it's like, well, let her set up in a side lane and pick people off and be this advantage. And so when I heard that we were like saying Yorick is the split pusher, right? We're going to really enforce it. I know that took a lot of work on your behalf to understand the problem space. And so I kind of want to hear about it. Like what, from beginning to end, what is it like making a split pusher, supporting a split pusher? Do you think League is ready?
So honestly, there's like split pushing as a concept in our game probably needs a little bit more support at the systemic level. That's not like a champion, like per champion based.
Right. That's like items, map stuff, things
items,
like that.
map stuff. Basically ways to fight it, like maybe make it like more exciting to deal with, all that kind of stuff. The fundamental issue with split pushing that I believe is that it is to some degree only done when the split pushing team knows they are winning, if you will. Like you will only do split pushing when you know that your solo laner that's split pushing will win against the other guy's solo laner. Basically,
yeah,
it's not something that's like, hey, this is going to be a fair situation. Like, no, you're not doing it because it's fair. But you're doing it.
You're trying to put him in a hard spot.
Exactly, you're doing it specifically because it's unfair, and that basically either requires the enemy to split off more than one person because 1v1 you can't win against that character.
Yeah, so you send two people to the Tryndamere, let's say.
Right, exactly, and that to some degree is one of the fundamental, if you will, problems. Not even a problem, like the reason players sometimes react negatively to split pushing, because it is putting them at a very hard place, telling them you have to make this decision right now that you don't necessarily have a great answer to. Send one guy and see him lose to the other guy, or send two guys and lose the team fight kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
so,
or start a team fight and potentially lose your base as a result, right? There's no worse feeling than losing the 5v4 and the Nasus is on your Nexus turrets, right? And so with him being allowed to now do, we talk about two lanes at once, right? As sort of a thing. Do you think that players are going to be equipped with enough answers to handle Yorick split push? Do you feel like there are ways in which you made it healthier, ways in which you made it more difficult?
So there's there's two kinds of split pushes we will need to make sure that we don't confuse the listeners with. Is that there's the Yorick pushes versus race, in the normal split push, if you will, and then there's the sends are off separately. So basically two lanes at once kind of split pushing kind of thing. So the reason that entire idea came into being was that one of the reasons that split pushing is sometimes a frustrating experience to play with even is the fact that you never see your actual top laner be with you, if you will. I have a Tryndamere who's split pushing all the game, and that generally means that the Tryndamere is not ever seen by you ever.
Yeah,
you don't ever see
he may be
guy.
the reason you win, right? But you don't feel a lot of association, I guess, is what you're saying to the character.
One of the motivations with trying this model was that I was hoping for a case where Yorick could actually stay with his team and feel like he would obviously be 0.7 a champion or kind of thing without the ultimate out there, but still you feel his presence and you feel the need to coordinate all that kind of stuff, while actually having that character's presence with you sometimes. So that was one of the experiments with that land. And fighting against, the idea is that the Yorick is much weaker, obviously, without his ultimate, and the ultimate obviously pushes. It pushes on its own, but it pushes much slower than a normal champion would.
Right.
So the enemies have a window to actually engage, and hopefully if they're not losing hopelessly or something like that, should be able to potentially win the 5v5, but Yorick's like, half a champion or whatever you call it at this point.
So you would say then to kind of, I think what you're getting at here is you're saying, well, if the maiden is off on the side, or I don't actually know what we should be calling it. I just heard,
I can call it the maiden.
Yeah. If the maiden's off to the side, and as long as you can maybe defend or wave clear middle or somewhere else, you can probably deal with it. It probably won't threaten to kill you like maybe a Zed or Fiora would.
No, it would. It does not.
And then upon doing so, Yorick's team has got to get the hell out, because now if you engage in them, even with a 5 team, you're saying Yorick's contributions are probably going to be significantly lower without that maiden to back him up.
Either you have the choice to potentially engage on that 5v5 while the maiden's up, and then try to win that and then deal with the maiden later, because the maiden obviously pushes slower than a normal champion, or you could try to make it so that someone can actually kill the maiden quickly and then come back and join the team fight and make use of the the relatively long cooldown timer on that ultimate to do push your advantage somewhat. The maiden is intentionally, that's kind of the entire reason behind the mechanic of when Yorick's hitting something that the maiden is hitting, he deals bonus damage, and the maiden's base damage is actually fairly low, because when the maiden's alone and the champion's trying to engage it, she doesn't get just killed by the maiden. If you're just hitting them, yeah.
So maiden kills are probably pretty rare, is what you're saying.
Basically.
Yeah. Well, as in a 1v1 scenario, I imagine when a big fight happens and he summons the army, all bets are off.
Yeah. Sometimes it'll happen, but generally the idea was that I wanted to lower the amount of, how do you call it, unconscious damage that Yorick was doing on a minion character like this, because if the maiden was actually dealing a lot of damage on her own, and then she would also hit a bunch of random people, we ended up in cases where oh, Yorick did 2,000 damage to me with the maiden, and Yorick never realized it because the maiden was off doing something on their own, and then the enemy doesn't really realize it that much until they die.
Yeah.
And it was no one actually had any kind of cool feeling about it. So what we did was that, okay, let's remove actually a lot of damage from the maiden's normal attacks, but push it into this proc effect, which requires Yorick to be actually hitting what the maiden is hitting, which makes it much more tied to Yorick's actual actions.
Yeah.
And allows enemies to gauge the threat of the maiden much better, where oh, Yorick's not with her, okay, she's a pushover. I can kill her relatively easily.
Yeah, it's I remember to that thought where you're saying the maiden should have more conscious benefit. I know that was a big part of the Annie update, right? Was we think Tibber should be killing you, and Tibber should feel like a big part of Annie's expenditure rather than this kind of being the other way around. Hearing this, and thank you so much for your thoughts on split pushing, John. It's actually quite interesting how that almost mimics exactly the character that you're talking about, right? How he relies on this power, and even when they're separate, or maybe working at odds, they are still really linked.
Yeah, that's correct. And I when we test played it, I actually didn't find the maiden to be that weak. I think she got my only kills.
Yeah.
I was testing Yorick. So,
well, there were also versions where she was. There were multiple versions. I'm not exactly sure which one you played.
Yeah. So I guess to everyone out there who is soon to be split pushing against Yorick's ghouls army, just I guess be very glad that you weren't in the one where it was super lethal.
There were versions that was much more lethal than it is right now.
Well, I also remember you were testing a version where you got very specific rewards for killing the maiden. It was oh, if you go out of your way and you kill the ghoul, now maybe you're stronger when you decide to come back and fight.
Right. We toyed around with those kinds of things, and then ultimately it felt like Yorick was buffing the other team. So this is probably not the kind of sensation we want to give.
Yeah, that's
it's a new objective, everyone.
Yeah.
Hey, Yorick's giving red buff to the other team.
Which is funny because that's old Yorick. A lot of people are so my 80 carry gets to feed twice. Is what you're telling me? Is I just give him 2 kills. Oh God! And this is for people out there who don't notice this. I think it's an understatement to say that Yorick on live, as many players know him, is a buggy champion.
Oh yeah.
I remember at one of the syncs, one of the earlier company-wide meetings I went when I first started here, they mentioned the number one cause of bugs was something to do with like patch timing and like redeploys, right? The number 2 cause of bugs was Yorick. And the number 3 cause of bugs was Karthus.
Oh, wow.
And we were like, wow, like more than like, we're talking like Yorick had more bugs than all other champions combined at one point. And it's almost been this like never-ending joke to me as a player where it's like I'll get my one of my buddies who actually loves Yorick, he'll send me a picture where he did something like 65 million damage in a game because the Yorick ghouls, when they expired, would deal true damage to themselves. And so you think about as many ghouls over a game, and it's in your end game screen, or the ones where Yorick feeds something like 64 kills to the enemy team every time they kill his ghost or something like that. There's just... The character has been insane on that front. And so I remember taking on Yorick it was like, all right, guys, we have to do this for like the future of League of Legends. It's like an Armageddon situation.
I thought that's why we introduced the character Azir.
Yeah, yeah.
So there could be a new champion.
Yeah, so there could be a new champion that was too buggy. Yeah, Azir and Yasuo.
Azir's like, Azir's bugs are generally confined to him. In most cases, if you will.
Azir wishes he could have bugs like Yorick.
Yorick's issue is that he was actually bugging out every other champion that existed in the game because of his ultimate. That caused that zombie thing.
Because if in zombie mode, who's it like Kog'Maw, for instance? It's like,
does he go into zombie 2?
Yeah, it's like okay, well, if you killed my Kog'Maw ghost, does my Kog'Maw ghost do his death passive? Do I get my death passive twice? Do I get it 0 times? Right? And so it was fun because Yorick created bugs together, right? He created teamwork bugs, and so that I always think of Yorick as the meteor, the asteroid heading towards Earth, and Sol bravely donning the astronaut's helmet and saying that I will stop it.
So are you saying that Sol is Ben Affleck then?
Yes, Sol Kim is Ben Affleck. You heard it here.
Fair enough.
All right.
I think of it more like Bruce Willis in Armageddon.
Oh wow. He's actually
He's going
leading
up
the
to
crew.
die.
Yeah,
That's true.
On the asteroid.
Probably makes sense.
Yeah,
the funny thing is, now that you mention it though, Yorick basically required every single champion that was made after the character, and even before the character, because he came into the character, to actually special case a bunch of interactions with Yorick's ultimate just by the character existing, and those were not easy. And I've had multiple developers literally come up to me and then, Sol, you're doing God's work by getting rid of that ultimate.
And the reason that I bring it up, partially because it's fun to look back on the history of things, but because I know that there will be some people, and there kind of already have been some people who are they miss the old ultimate, right? Because it did have a strategic component, right? You would see for a time, I think it was season 2, there was Yorick Cassiopeia, Yorick Rise,
totally.
right? Where we always had this incentive on it to be good with 80 carries because it had 80 ratios, but it was cool to be like, who is my machine gun ultimate sustained damage mage, and then let's keep them up, right? Have you kamikaze in there as Rise, and then when you get back up, just keep dishing out insane damage. And so I think players always thought that would be really cool, and I think this was the first time in my eyes where we kind of left something on the table intentionally, right? Gangplank, we're like global ult, parlay, we gotta have it, right? Poppy, gotta have the wall slamming, right? Because that's important to her character. With Yorick, we were like, I think we should just retire this one.
To be frank, I would not want to give the impression that we got rid of Yorick's ult only because it was buggy. That was not. I mean, that was obviously a bonus, cream on the cake kind of thing. But
everyone a deep sigh of relief.
Yeah. But the biggest reason is that Yorick's ultimate was not necessarily that fitting for a character for Yorick's fantasy, if you will, because it was something that was really hard to appreciate for Yorick. It was something that was much more like a supportive kind of spell that was fit a supportive character a lot more than would fit a character who's much more about the selfish kind of a top lane kind of character that Yorick was.
Right.
And we wanted ways that because one of the biggest complaints about Yorick's ultimate was that he never felt like he was actually getting power from it, if you will. Like
Oh, yeah.
you use it on a dude and you see the AD carry go ham or something like that, but it never felt like you were doing anything
or
about
you
it.
use it and they don't know
They
how to
don't
play
realize
with
what
it.
to do with it. And then
Right,
they
and
just-
and it's
doing
hard
thing.
because I'll bring up Karma once more because I think there's some similar ground here in that, you know, old Karma had this tether mechanic, right, where I attach to my ally and then we like clothesline you,
Right.
and if we got to like work together to run people through the beam to deal damage and slow them, and like that's a super cool idea, and I think we had always thought like, oh, it'd be really great to have that on a tank character, on someone who can really grab a dive buddy and go into the fray, but the number of times that simply your team just wouldn't do it, right? It was like, oh, well, I have this move. Why do I have this rope on me? Right. And I think the number of times on Yorick's that it's like, come on, man, you got to go fight him. Now you have a ghost here. You know, no, you don't want to die explicitly. You may want to stay alive. There's just so much confusion around it that I think it was very hard. You know, I think this is not to say we couldn't have done it, but I think that call had to be made, which was, are we going to support it? And are we going to go to like Thresh Lantern levels of calling out this new thing you may have to learn? Or are we going to try to do something that more fits the fantasy?
Honestly, I would not be super surprised if some designer like down the road decides to like not exactly Yorick's Ultimate, but some kind of like that's in a similar vein to Yorick's Ultimate on like a supportive character. Like, that feels like we could probably, the execution could be improved and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we are making a character that's about like in his fantasy about like Army of the Dead. It's not like we're not making a character who's like trying to make another character be the star kind of character. That was not Yorick to me.
Well, you want to double down on the fantasy, right? Like
Exactly.
it's something, you know, to draw an allusion to another hobby of mine. Like I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, right? And I was talking to somebody. Nerd. Don't you play too?
Yeah, I literally play with Andy.
But I was talking to somebody about deck brewing the other day, and we were talking about like a tribal deck, specifically a zombie tribal deck, actually, which is funny. And it's like, you know, he has all these really cool cards, and he's like, well, what about this? And what about this? And I'm just like, well, what are you trying to actually accomplish? Like, what's the focus? What's the theme? You know, double down on the focus, double down on the theme. Yeah, these other cool cards are cool and they're powerful and they're flashy.
But are they zombies, though?
But are they zombies, right?
Yeah.
Do they do things that make what you're trying to do better, right? And I think it's very much the same thing when it comes to like the abilities in the champ. And it's like, you know, you can res, you know, your teammate or keep them alive, I guess, for X amount of time longer. But like, does that actually feel cohesive? Does it actually feel like you're really contributing to the overall thing?
We want the minions to be actually helping Yorick do his thing and not like Yorick helping one of the minions do their thing, if you will.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
John, I think we're getting close to the wrap up time here. But John, I wanted to ask you, what do you think was your favorite moment, or perhaps your kind of aha moment for you working on this project when you really felt like everything was coming together and you were really excited about seeing the character
I think
form?
it's when we finally found our actor, who is very good and has tremendous chops on that dude. He was in the exploratory record, and I'd written some. I mean, whenever we do an exploratory record, it's always you write the lines longer than they need to be because you want to hear the guys. You know, you want to hear them read.
Get the range, right? Get a feel for their cadence, stuff like that.
And I think at that point, when I heard our guy doing these Death Monk lines, I knew like, yeah, that's it. That feels right to me.
Yeah.
That feels like a guy who has had, you know, has been stuck here for 1,000 years with
in this audio
corpses.
recording booth.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And who once, you know, was some sort of holy man. It was a nice mixture, and he nailed it.
Soul, same question for you with a slight difference. When in testing, did you feel like you had something really special in your hands? We know between there's a story like this for almost every champion, right? There's like the Quinn turning into a bird and flying away. There's all these different moments, but what was it for you in Yorick that you were like, yeah, this is the kit, this is it?
honestly, the biggest moment was that, like, I don't even remember who it was, but when we got the queue spawning mechanism to a place where like it was really fun and like, you know, to play with and like run down the lane with, and people were giving me feedback like, hey, I literally just want to queue the wave like my entire game. I just want to like,
even if it's even if it'll get me killed.
I don't care. I just want to like, you know, make the goals and like, and have fun with these things. And like that was when it was like, okay, there's like a very core like a fundamental fun thing here, and then we can definitely build from here. That was like a really cool moment for me.
Yeah, and I gotta say, this is, you know, this is just shout outs to my boy here for a sec, but this was, I think Soul, you do a lot of exploration, but you end up in a really good spot. I think you're the thing that I say is a Soul Kim character is when you make the base laning pattern of a champion feel really unique. And so when it came from the Victor rework that you did, the Poppy, the Gangplank with, you know, the barrel spawning, the wall slamming, the shield, you know, the Avenger shield throwing, things like that, they all feel really unique to me in ways that I really don't feel like any of our older characters, right? Where it's like, last hit a bunch, use my stun move, use my this move, right? They feel really cohesive in it. And from what I can see, you have managed to achieve that again. Especially, I love the ghoul wall. Is super cool. It's kind of gross actually. Like
it is. Yeah.
I like that all of Yorick's ghoul stuff, his undead stuff, is very fleshy, very gooey, and it's sort of, you know, it's very uncomfortable, but in a good way. Right?
Viscous.
Yeah,
is
like
a good word.
kind of what you would expect. It reminds me of like the WoW stuff, like Nexramas and like all these, like some of the popular forms of necromancy where they have like weird putrid vials of just some crazy necro stuff, and and he's got a lot of that going on with him. So guys, thank you so much for coming by and talking about Yorick. Andy, thank you for coming by and talking about that zombie deck. No, I'm kidding. Much love to all of you guys, and for any of you out there who are listening to this, go ahead, do the whole like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your grandparents. I want every one of your grandmothers to listen to this. Specifically, I think she'll love it. I think we're a great cast of people. So
review us on iTunes, please.
Review us on iTunes as well. Get other people in on it. And we will see you guys for the next one. Who I don't think I can reveal, but
you cannot.
Yeah,
but he thanked me for getting rid of Yorick's ultimate, though.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Spooky. All right. Anyways, it's been fun. Thanks again for listening. Thanks again for being here, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Patrick.